Hello and welcome to the Hotel Marketing Show. In this podcast, we're going to talk about all things hotel marketing. We're going to talk about things that are happening in the industry, insights, things that all hotel marketers or anybody that has an interest in hotel marketing wants to know about. My name is Victoria.
And I'm Nadine.
And we're the hosts of the Hotel Marketing Show. Today, in this episode, we're going to be talking with André, Director of Sales and Marketing at the Langham, Melbourne, about how they're marketing not only their hotel, but also their city to drive demand.
Perfect. Hi again, actually. To get things started, to get things kicked off, André, could you give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and a little bit of your background as well?
Hi Nadine, hi Victoria. Pleasure to be here with you today. I've been a hotelier for many, many years. I started working in hotels actually when I was in high school and during my time in college. So I have been in the industry for over 30 years. I'm extremely passionate about hotels. I've loved hotels since I was a very young child. I've actually worked around the world opening many hotels, many great hotels. From Washington, DC, I opened the St. Regis in Washington. I opened the St. Regis in Doha in Qatar. I also worked in London in the 90s for Thistle Hotels. 14 years of my career I spent with Starwood Hotels. Most of that time I was with the St. Regis. And then with Langham Hospitality Group, I've been here nearly 8 years as the Director of Sales and Marketing here at the Langham Melbourne.
Wow. That's a lot, but you can really clearly see and hear that you're passionate about the industry. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's super impressive. Love it.
Yeah. Also, another question for you is, what is one thing that you recently started doing and want to continue doing in 2022?
Yeah, making more time for myself to do things that I also want to do outside of work, and making those items also a priority, not just work-related items. I think that's a real key takeaway from COVID and all the lockdowns. Unfortunately here in Melbourne, we went through the longest lockdowns, and so a lot of people that I know and work with, but also just friends and colleagues, made some pretty important and worthwhile decisions for their own well-being as well, which I think is really important that we take away something very positive from that lockdown process. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it was, for us, we were also in a kind of lockdown in Amsterdam, sometimes more, sometimes less, sometimes no one really knew. But you kind of understood or had to reprioritize the way you work and the way you see visiting family and friends, when all of a sudden it was so hard to do that,
Yes.
that you got a whole different
Absolutely.
understanding from it.
Yeah. And also, Nadine, just on that obviously also translate into like the buying behaviors for travel that we see these days, or not just in hotels, but in luxury and corporate hotels, but also resort destinations and things like that. Just the take up anyway here for the Australian market, buying resort experiences, or even outside of Australia, just the booking lead time, and not just talking package holidays, but very much high-end travel experiences with consumers wanting to do it now, like within the next few months, not the next 2 years, now. So I think that's also a good positive that's come from COVID for our industry as well anyway.
Nice, that's super interesting. Yeah, I think Nadine, this is something that you're really interested in as well, but like the whole well-being aspect as well, how that's kind of changed, for what people expect from travel after the pandemic, as well as like looking for relaxing getaways, not just, like a place to sleep, but a whole experience as well. And another question for you, André, what is something that you're hoping to see or see more of in the hotel industry in 2022?
See more of. From a people standpoint, having been in hotels now for a very long time, I really get a great satisfaction and really enjoy seeing, I don't want to say younger generation, but younger people coming up through the ranks, and really, mentoring them, and obviously making sure that they've got the right development plans in place. I think that's really critical for our industry. Our industry is very unique. It's a tremendous industry to be part of, but it's quite different to other mainstream industries. So it's really important that we continue to really focus and highlight the many great benefits and tremendous experiences that you can have working in this industry for the younger generation to come up through the ranks. So, that element of the industry, I think, is really, really important, even more so in a post-COVID world as we move forward. So there's lots of, not just in Melbourne, but there's lots of new hotel projects happening right around the world, and hotel products which you wouldn't have sort of thought about 5-10 years ago. So the way a new hotel gets built these days is very different to say 5 years ago even, and what that looks like. So yeah, that's what I'd like to see more of.
Such an interesting topic, actually. A couple of months ago, I was in Hamburg for the 101 Future Hospitality Days, and that was also a big topic, just the way that hotels, how we know them, how they will shift in the future. I think there's so much to see, so I'm extremely excited to see what the next years bring us.
Yeah, a very vibrant and exciting landscape to come.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Talking about the pandemic, you touched on it a little bit already, but could you take us through the experience during the time of the pandemic as a hotel, what you went through?
So what we went through, our hotel here in Melbourne, where we weren't part of any sort of quarantine program here. So each time we had a lockdown, we actually closed the hotel. So unfortunately, we closed the hotel 6 times in total. Whilst business levels obviously were still very minimal during those lockdowns, it was still going through that process. And I distinctly remember the times when we did have to close, and the staff, the few staff that we did have working during those times, we'd see bookings coming back. And again, very small business levels I'm talking. You'd see bookings coming through ever so slightly and increasing day by day. And then within minutes, as soon as the lockdown was announced, it just instantly, cancelled. And seeing occupancy rates fall, not just for hotel rooms, but also restaurants and catering spaces and things like that. Again, very small. But that really, I remember, did take a toll on some members of the team, because everyone's very proud and takes great ownership in rebuilding the hotel business like it's their own, which is a fantastic thing to have. But that really took its toll on some people. And, watching how the impact of that, like, the build up, and then like a never ending roller coaster. Yeah, I distinctly remember that. And during that whole period, just making sure that as a leader that you're constantly making sure that the team is still motivated, they're still doing okay, you're touching base as best you can on those weekly Zoom calls. The communication is so important, but that's the memory that I have, and yeah, that it really stood out for me. So whilst business now is very much very, very positive, it's still not back obviously to pre-COVID levels, but it's returned at a much faster pace than what we anticipated. You still have that in the back of your mind, or is something going to happen like the same the world over?
Yeah, it's kind of like you mentioned, also having this uncertainty the whole time of thinking, oh, it's going to go better, it's going to be better, and all of a sudden, and another one. You kind of
Yes,
need to really, I can imagine, work on being motivated to have the hopefulness as well to say, okay, this time it will work. And then after that
yes,
happens like 5 or 6 times, I can just imagine how hard it is to always get back up on that horse.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I think the topic that we're going to talk about today as well, I think it's like a super interesting topic as well, because we're talking not just about marketing your hotel, but also how you guys are positioning the destination of Melbourne. And I mean, I love Melbourne. I think I've been there twice, and I think it's just such a cool city. Even now that I live in Europe, I'm still like, Melbourne is such a cool city. Can you share a
Yes.
little bit more about how you came to that decision, or what kind of things that you're thinking about for your marketing strategy for 2022 coming out of the pandemic?
Sure, sure. The Langham Melbourne, we've always been a very key and important hotel offering in the city for a very, very long time. So it's given Melbourne a lot in terms of what the hotel has provided. We work very closely with all the Melbourne special events. We work closely internationally. So just to speak from an international standpoint, our top international markets are the US, followed by the UK. So they're our top international markets. So it's really the premium travel markets. And obviously people coming from long haul areas coming into Melbourne, they're not just seeing Melbourne. So it's really important, and we are such a small state to really make sure that they're coming to Melbourne, but they're also exploring regional Victoria as well. It makes perfect sense when we work very closely with our partners of Visit Victoria and also the Melbourne Convention, also the City of Melbourne. So when we are selling out in the market, and I'm talking international markets, that we are selling also the destination and really focusing on what Melbourne provides an international premium traveller compared to other cities like Sydney or other parts of Australia. Melbourne's got so many unique facets to it. It's not just about the food and wine, it's about the whole experience. It's the culture, the museums, regional Victoria, what that offers, the theatre, the concerts, and just, yeah, I mean, we've already this year, we've had the Australian Open in January. That's the first Grand Slam event to kick off the Grand Slam season each year. That was a tremendous success. It didn't start off the best for many things, but by the end, it was a tremendous success in so many ways. But also, just with those aerial images of Melbourne on the last day, and that really sort of built the platform for 2022, and that really helped and really pushed also the Grand Prix, which we just had a few weeks ago in April, and that's the second major special event here in Melbourne, and that was the most successful Grand Prix event in Australian history, with getting the highest numbers to the event over the 4 days. But then also just the international exposure and just watching that, it gave you goosebumps that Melbourne is definitely back as Australia's sporting and event capital. And then obviously we've got the Melbourne Cup Carnival coming up after spring racing in the springtime. And then we have the AFL Grand Final, Australian Rules Football, which is always, a tremendous season. Everyone is a devoted AFL fan here in Melbourne. And then, Boxing Day test, and then obviously New Year's. So whilst Melbourne doesn't have the harbour, we've got so many other attributes to offer. Here at the Langham, Melbourne, we have a Langham boat, which can cruise up and down the Yarra River for a picnic cruise or champagne sunset cruise. So just taking advantage of what's here and what we can do. The restaurant scene, without doubt, is the best in the country, and some of the restaurants we have here are simply the best in the world. So the amount of new restaurants coming online. We also just had the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival at the end of March, which is the best food and wine festival in Australia. We had Nigella Lawson out from the UK. Ooh. She was the special guest. The world's longest lunch here in Treasury Gardens with over 1,200 diners. So it's such a foodie capital, coffee culture. Yeah, Melbourne's definitely back. It's got a tremendous buzz for it at the moment. The Chanel exhibition just finished at the National Art Gallery. That was, they were exhibiting for over 3 months. So that created a lot of visitation through to the city. So yeah, it's going very, very well. We've got the Rising Festival commencing very soon, and that's the Winter Festival here. It's the first proper year because unfortunately last 2 years they had started it, but it had to get cancelled. So yeah.
Nice. I'm thinking of going back home to New Zealand for a month towards the end of the year, but now I'm like, maybe I should try and fit in a trip to Melbourne at the same time.
I was just about to say, like, everything you were mentioning, I feel like I need to travel there soon now.
Yes. Yeah, you would love Melbourne, Nadine. I think it's right up your alley. Andre, you mentioned some of the food and wine stuff and giving recommendations for things to do in the area. From a practical point of view, is it that like you're working together as a team to come up with these suggestions, or are you working with another organization that is kind of promoting, wants you guys to promote certain things? Like, how do you kind of decide what it is that as a brand you guys are kind of promoting?
Sure. As I mentioned, like we work closely with Visit Victoria and Melbourne Convention Group, but like internationally with Visit Victoria. So they've got offices, in LA, making sure that what they're promoting and what they're focusing on is very much in tandem with us. I'm talking mainly for like FIT. So we work very much in partnership, like in, when there's opportunities to host different media familiarizations coming down from, either North America or Europe, making sure that we're getting those opportunities to host the media here at the hotel. We also work very closely with our sister hotels in those locations, just to ensure if there's any opportunities that we can have them assist us, just to, keep the Langham name at the forefront. We definitely do so. So also our location here in Melbourne is second to none. We overlook the city of Melbourne, so we're, desirably located right on the banks of the Yarra River, with that, incredible iconic shot of the Melbourne skyline. And you're just a 1 minute walk across the footbridge, and you're in the centre of Melbourne, in Flinders Lane, amongst all the best restaurants. So the reason I'm saying that is that we do a lot of promotional work for the city of Melbourne and for different media organisations because of our location and that prime view of Melbourne. So. Yeah, but I mean, with the regional Victoria, obviously working very closely with, some of the selected operators on the Mornington Peninsula, Yarra Valley, they're, two key areas that are very much easy day trips from the city. And to make sure that, I've done a lot of different trade and media shows and activities, in market overseas, and working together as like Team Melbourne to focus on, what the whole city has to offer. It's not just your one hotel. So that's really important. That's what comes through time and time again in Melbourne, working in the Melbourne tourism industry. It's all about that teamwork, which has proven very, very successful in the past.
That's awesome.
I hope that answers your question.
Does it, Victoria?
It totally does. It's great.
Yeah, we were talking about all of the also teamwork and how the dynamic shifted internally in hotels during the time of the pandemic. And I think, like you mentioned, also on a larger scale, it's nice to hear that it's basically one big team, right? That's working together to create these amazing experiences. And talking about what we mentioned earlier as well, the expectations of travelers having of this destination kind of traveling versus I'm just going to go to this one property and then that's it. It's more about creating that experience culture. A question I have for you is, how do you measure the success of this, as in KPIs, maybe more than just room bookings or nights booked, but is there a way that you guys...
In terms of how we quantify, very much like from a broad spectrum, looking at obviously the visitation figures and from the origins of where the guests are coming from. Okay, not that we've been able to track that the last 2 years, but already looking at forward bookings for, between now and the balance of the year. The US, and I'm talking specifically FIT, the US is still the number one international market above New Zealand, and then followed by the UK. But then also, it's not just from a revenue standpoint, but also from a media standpoint with what we do here, and more on a local level. This is not so much international, but more on a local level. We've spent a lot of time nurturing and building very, very close working partnerships with very targeted influencers, different talent, like very, very good talent that supports the hotel. If I can say friends of the Langham Melbourne, which does bode well for us because it really keeps us relevant. There's lots of new hotels in the market. The Langham Melbourne is not the newest hotel in town, but it's got the highest profile. If you're a Melbourne resident and you want to come and celebrate something in the city, you come to the Langham Melbourne. You have an international visitor coming, come and stay at the Langham Melbourne. It's really the centre for celebration. It's very much like an urban resort. We come up with very, very unique staycation packages when the hotel went through COVID, just like a lot of other hotels did, but not your standard, bread and breakfast, free drink on arrival, movie, etc. But just very, very unique, very bespoke packages that included a variety of things. We've got, our beautiful Kerry Hess, Residence by Kerry Hess. She's a fashion interior designer based in Brisbane, but she's done works with the likes of the Ritz Hotel in London, Tiffany, Cartier. And so we transformed a 2-bedroom residence into this like Parisian style suite.
Wow.
Feminine, but it's garnered a lot of media, a lot of PR, also a lot of, worthwhile business. And it just gives us that edge, that signature suite experience. So she's followed by many celebrities worldwide. It gives us that edge and that different sort of experience that we are able to offer. We came up with a pet staycation program, but again, not a normal pet, it's called Pampered Pets. And very much the pets that do come and stay at the Langham Melbourne, it's very much the pampered pets of Melbourne. Yeah, so just with what the dogs and cats also get on arrival, to how they're treated here at the hotel. And it's all just those really, important little things that we're able to offer.
That's amazing. I think the pet one I saw from you guys as well. I think we saw that one. And that actually raised the whole thing of having these pet staycations as well, right? Because during the pandemic, so many people started to adopt cats and dogs and whatnot. And now they want to travel again. And having something like this, like you just mentioned, is so unique and gives you again that edge over other hotels in the area. So that's awesome. And I think that also ties into my next question a little bit, because I would like to know what your 3 main takeaways are for hoteliers or for hotel marketers, key pieces of advice, just the 3 things.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have an open mind, and also like an open mind, not just with what you're planning and what you're strategizing, but also not work closely with your competitors, but you need to have an open or communication and work together with the market, which is a better sort of explanation. Obviously, you're competing against every single other hotel in the city, but it's really important that you have those partnerships with the other main hotels that, are in your city, particularly during these times, absolutely particularly during these times. If you're not working with your local tourism body or your convention bureau, you're doing yourselves no favor. You need to work with partners like that. They need to know what you're doing, what your plans are, how they can help. Because if you're not telling them you're not doing your job right, you need to maximize all those partnerships. Also, obviously working with the media as much as you can, and also to be agile. I think that's obviously, a key takeaway from COVID, that it's so important that, to remain agile in this market, because, anything can happen. I shouldn't say in this market, but, in this industry, because it's really important that you're able to shift gear very, very quickly, to make use of other channels, and we've very much seen that already this year. Yes, the whole market was reopening, but then we had the Omicron, come through, and that created more challenges. So what other tap can we turn on to get more, business from other channels? So knowing what, tap to turn off and turn on when need be. So that's really, really important. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Obviously, also staffing is a major, major challenge for all hoteliers. And it's very much, I think everyone needs to manage the expectations in terms of what talent you can actually get onboarded, and be realistic with that, because what your expectations were 2 years ago is very different now.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think staying agile as well is also super important, because like you mentioned, one thing was kind of over, then the next thing comes across. So being able to kind of stay on your feet and dance through the situation.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's really cool. I also really liked what you said, Andre, about like working with media organizations or the tourism boards and stuff like that. I think that's such a good, like, practical thing, like really practical takeaway as well. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that with us today as well.
Pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andre.
For those of you listening at home, please share your thoughts with us if you think there's anything else that we've missed, or if you have any questions about any of the topics that we covered today, please get in touch with us at welcome@hotelchamp.com, and make sure to follow Hotel Champ on all of your favourite social media channels. Stay tuned for more episodes in the future. Take care of yourself. Have a great day, and bye-bye.